issues. And once again, thank you very much for being on my channel. And if this is your first time on being on this channel, please subscribe, like the channel, like this video, and click on the notification button so that you can get updates as soon as I release new video. And my dedication is to be releasing video every 2 days, max 3 days. And sometimes I talk about things that are not even related to this part where I do several other cybersecurity related topic also. So thank you for being on my channel, and let's kickstart. So let's clear this. Let's clear the terminal. Clear. Okay. I don't know why this is not responding. Okay, I just closed my. Okay, let me do it this way. This is now we are starting very fresh. Starting very fresh. So first of all, I start my attack box. This comes with if you're a premium user on tryhackme, it comes with tryhackme. And secondly, we come here. I'll deploy the machine, the vulnerable machine I'll be working with, and when I deploy it, they're going to give me the IP address here. I can interact with it with this IP address because it means the server is online. So from here, let's go back to vulnerability scanning. That is where I stopped. So we are going to be fast about this. So let's just read the background. I will do a little bit of explanation on it. Metasploit allows you to quickly identify some critical vulnerability that could be considered as a low-hanging fruit. The low-hanging fruit are the FTP. We have SSH. We have RDP and all of that. So those are those ones that have high occurrences of being vulnerable, or that have been exploited in the past, and you have a lot of documentations for. So we have a lot of documentations for. So now they said the term low-hanging fruit usually refer to easily identifiable and exploitable vulnerability that could potentially allow you to gain a foothold on a system, and in some cases gain high-level privilege such as root and an administrator. What they're trying to say here is for Metasploit, for exploit vulnerability, we know vulnerability misconfiguration, faulty logic in an application. We can talk about misconfiguration, faulty logic, human error in terms of setting up your environment. All of that could be the factor of the vulnerability and weakness in the system, and those weaknesses can be used by an attacker that have malicious intent. So even those who don't really have malicious intent, if you are if you give authorization to, like we have the ethical hackers, give authorization to pen test your system, they could show you, they could highlight this vulnerability. But vulnerability can be exploited when weakness are being used to access that particular thing. That means it's an exploit. So because it gives an attacker or an outsider an access to your system, it could either be as a common user with less privileges or as a root users. And once they get in, they deliver a payload. Payload is the intent of what the attacker wants to do, what the operations they want to carry out. Like those are like the commands they input to get the resources and everything they want to get on your system. So after that, privileges can be escalated. It depends on the kind of exploit and the payload. Some payload directly escalates your privilege, while some you have to use post exploitation modules. Post exploitation modules is after you have exploited that particular weakness and you deliver your payload, you can now escalate your privileges using posts. So that is what it implies. So now they said finding vulnerability using Metasploit will rely heavily on your ability to scan and fingerprint. Your ability to scan and fingerprint. Nmap is there for you, a very wonderful tool to scan a system, and it can be combined with scripts to evaluate weaknesses and vulnerability. It connects to Nmap. Nmap has documentation of vulnerabilities that they test the system against as it scans. That is what. So once you see those vulnerability, it splits it out and give you those exploits that you can use against those vulnerabilities. So now what they're trying to say is your ability to be able to scan and fingerprint being able to get the operating system of that, of the particular, of the machine you are, of the target machine, all of that is embodied in what they are talking about here. Now they said the better you are at this stage, the more options Metasploit may provide you. Just explain that. For example, if you identify a VNC service running on the target, you may use the search. Okay. Now, once you are able to identify a vulnerability in a particular service or anything, then you can just use Metasploit because it's a robust framework. Search using the MSF console through into the Metasploit to get to get options of exploit for that particular services that has been indicated. So they said you may use the search function on Metasploit to list useful modules. The results will contain payload and post modules. At this stage, these results are not very useful as we have not discovered a potential exploits to use just yet. However, in the case of VNC, there are several scanner modules that, remember in my past study, we talked about modules. Modules are the auxiliary, the exploit, the payload, and the post module. The post, the post are post modules, post exploits, post exploitation. So all of that are the modules we have. Then in each of those modules, we now have the exploits. So first of all, we have platform. Platform, we talk about the operating machines you want to, because you have to specify all of that. Okay, if I'm using a particular module in the context of which architecture talks about x64, x88, x84, is it 32, is it x32? So all of these are what you have to consider: system, architecture, operating system, Windows, Linux, Mac, is it mobiles? Are we talking about Android? Are we talking about iPhone? All of that. That's where that comes in. Then that takes us to the particular exploit itself. So it has to go module. I think it's module platform architecture, and I remember we've spoken about, I think, stage and stageless. If we haven't spoken about stage and stageless payload, we are going to talk about it. So now let's quickly replicate what was done here. So the first thing, enter so that this terminal goes and it gets a new terminal. So with this new terminal, first of all, because I will be working with Metasploit. Metasploit is initiated using MSF console. So we can use this. Sorry, my bad. So while we wait, so what we want to do here now is we want to use the search. After using the search, we use parameters like the info and the options to gain more detail about the gain more details about the exploit. So now what they did here was to search was VNC, and we know VNC is under scanners, and scanners are, you see, scanners brute forcer, fuzzer, crawlers, they are under auxiliary. So I would say search type. Remember we talk about type. Type is when when you want to specify a particular module. So I can say auxiliary. 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 We are going for VNC. VNC is under scanner also. So with this, we have the list of exploits that was brought under the categories of auxiliary, scanner, and VNC. So here, remember, okay, VNC, this use VNC, okay, they use hard _root _pw. So which is this? And remember when we spoke about using use, we can use use as against the ID of the particular exploit or the pathway of the exploit itself. So for this, we have the ID to be 0, the numeric identification, which is SN. You can say the serial number is 0. Okay, now we have been moving to the context. of the payload or the context of the exploit. Here we are. Now let's do, I want to show you the two ways we can. I just want to keep reminding us as we learn so that we can reinforce what we have learned. So now we can use back to get back into our MSF console itself. So now let's try using the pathway and get the same. So the best way is to learn how to do a thing in different ways. So let's copy, let's say use, then we paste it here, and we are still in the same concept. Okay, now remember the option of show and show option and show info. So we can do show info is going to tell us more about this exploit. So best is going to go to description. Under it we have details of what the exploit is all about. We have enable and set root account to a choosing password on unpatched macOS iSierra host with either screen sharing or remote manage enable. These are probably the way to deliver the particular exploits, talking about maybe the remote access options. So now for the reference, if you want to read more about this particular exploits, these are the reference. So these aren't merely knowing the CVE, you can use this to find these exploits on most of the free repository where details are counting of the vulnerability that's been discovered. Yes, a good example is exploit DB. So after knowing this, this gives us the basics option. Basic option talks about those parameters that could be set. And when you look at required, it tells you here if this is needed to be set or no, if it is very compulsory. If it is very compulsory and it's empty, then it has to be set. For this, in case of this, we have remote host to be very important, but it is not set. So for this case, remote means where I want to connect to. So I can easily just come up with something. Okay, okay. Let's try it against the IP address I was given here, this, which is 10.10.22.9.219. So I can say set rhosts 10 what am I doing? This is very slow. Okay, 10 we have 229 and we have 219. So I can set this. So since this has been set, now if I should use it's almost similar to using, let's use show info again. Show info. If you look at the show info now, this has been set. So that is how you do it, and I'm going to show us how to unset it. Now the second thing is this show info gives us more verbose details, but when you use show options, it only gives you those options that require you to be set for the basic functionality of that exploit. So in this sense, we can say let's say show options. So this just gives us what the modules is all about, what the modules entails, the parameter that needs to be set. And remember, I already set this already. So let's look at how to unset any parameter you set. Just parameter. So I can say unset rhosts and this. So by the time we look at options again, we'll notice that rhost is gone. And remember again, we've done something like we can set a global, we can do a global setting that even when I leave the context of any particular exploit and go to another exploit, parameters that I've set using global will still be there. So for example, I'm going to set a global context here. Let's say set G for global R hosts and our IP, which is 10.10.229 and we have 219. So as we have this, let's do options again and see. Now we have it here. So in the context of this, if I leave, let's say I say back, this is back. I've left the concept of this particular exploit. So let's go to another exploit and still check. Just want to Just want to waste my, okay. Let's go back to search. So let's use VNC login. So I'm going to be using the number now. Use, that's 3. So in the context of this, let's look at options. You will notice that the R host, if there's any, will have been set here. If I did not do a global setting, coming to this exploit now, will have erased all of the former context because it's context based. So I hope we understand that. Thank you. So they were talking about how to use our info here. We discussed how to use info, right? I've discussed how to use info in the explanation I gave. So let's clear this. Let's clear. And remember that other options that you have within your within the CMD of the system itself outside of MSF console can still be used, like ls. Ls will show the list of the files in the directory where I am presently. So using something like pwd will give me my pathway, route, all of that. So remember that also. Let's clear. So in case of this, let's do what they did. Okay, we're already in the context of VNC login, and that's what they did here. So we can just do either show info or use info. I've been using show info. You can use info alone. It gives you the same result. But the standard is to use show info or show options. So this is the list of what we have here. And like I've said, I've set this as a global and it's still here. So let's proceed. That's exactly what they just did here. So then I said, as you can see, the VNC module can help us find login details for VNC services. So VNC login can be used to get details about VNC, about the service. Let's look at, this is the default port for this service, 5900. So now I was the one that set this password. Is when I was doing this particular part. If you check one of my lessons, you see when I set this. And reason is, this is a list of passwords, common passwords that people have been using for their VNC that have been collated over time. So we can brute force a list of password against the service, so that we match our password and see which, if coincidentally the password for that service is on this password list, then we'll be able to gain access to the system, and our admin and our username too is correct. We'll be able to get access to it. So that is what it simply means. So thank you very much. Thank you again for staying put up to this time for this lesson. I'm grateful. I'm learning, you are learning, I'm happy, and everyone is happy. Thank you. And for those who even have felt better than me and have other ways of doing it, let's learn and enjoy ourselves. So I've done that. So let's do the last question. And now the question, I've already done this question because I've done this several times because my recordings were bad. That was why I did not post it. Now, said, who wrote the module that allows us to check SMT server for open relay? SMT server open relay. So what we will do is, now we go to the context of search SMTP, then what SMTP, then let's look at relay as part of our. So we're not picking any module now because probably we don't know. They said that allows us to check SMT server is, if it is a scanner, it's going to be under auxiliary, but we don't know for now. So let's just throw it into a general context. So looking at this, we have auxiliary scanner, we have it here. So we will be using use. I'll be using what we've learned simultaneously. Instead of using the number here, I decide to use the pathway. So once we are in the pathway, they said they want us to know who wrote it. And remember that info gives us basically all of that. I'm going to be doing it twice, in two ways, in two methods. Remember we talked about the ability to be able to do a single thing in two ways gives you edge, that it shows mastery. That is what it shows. So we can say show info show info, and go up and look at provided by, this is Kambemuri. That is our answer. Remember that we can do info alone and we're still going to get the same thing. This is info alone. And remember, in the context of, okay, let's go back. Then let's search again. That's something I want to show you. So this is search. Okay, we've searched. So we can use info. Then the path, and it's still going to give us the same answer without leaving the MSF console. You can just use info, then put the path in front of it. So we use info and put the path in front of it. And with this, we are actually almost done. We are actually even done. So we've gotten this, and that brings us to the end of this class. Thank you so much. Thank you very much. Thank you for staying to the end of this lesson for today. If this is your first time on this channel, I still remain myself, Akataminos. So thank you for checking out my channel, and thank you for staying for this lesson up to this time. If this is your first time on this channel, take your time to subscribe, click on the like button, and click on the notification button. I see you some other time. Thank you very much. Bye.